Hey everybody, welcome back to the Outdoor Adventures podcast here on Brownfield Ag News. I'm Brent Barnett, and we have a special guest this week. Noel Gandy is joining us from Southern Iowa, a good friend of mine, and has been on the show in the past. How's it going today, Noel?
Brent, it's great, man. We are post deer season and finally getting a little sleep, getting caught up a little bit around on some honeydews. It's good. Good.
Good deal. Well, hey, man, it's been really cold here of late, and I know a lot of the bucks have been shedding their antlers. Do you do much shed hunting at all? I was just curious at the start, like, do you guys go out and try to find, the antlers of any of the bucks that you've been following throughout the year?
Yeah, generally, and that's kind of where I limit it to. I know some people that's a passion, is shed hunting and picking up every single one, and I definitely will go and walk the farms that I hunt, but more so like with the idea of picking up sheds of deer I know. You almost develop a relationship. I know that might sound funny, but a relationship with deer, and it's just neat to hold that little piece of history, I guess, and like a little piece of that buck. So yeah, but I'll go. I usually wait though, Brent. Unless I know a target deer has for sure dropped, which I'll still run cameras and kind of try to keep an eye on it. If I know he dropped like last night, I would go on and look, but I generally will wait till mid-February, March. Granted, I've been following social media, I'm sure like you have, and seeing dudes picking up stuff already, especially with this little bitter snap that we've had. I'm sure that caused a lot to drop, but yeah, we'll get out pretty quick. I need to listen, man. I'm still at the end of the day. I'm from South Mississippi. I still need it to warm up a little bit.
I'm right there with you. The cold, I don't really like it too much. Maybe that's why I like to hunt October more than any other month.
Hey, if I could be done by October 15 every year, I'd choose it every single time.
I just don't have the eye as well for sheds. I feel like when I was younger,
Yeah.
I tried to go with my brother and some other family members, and I just had the hardest time seeing them. I almost had to trip on them or stumble across them. I remember one in particular. I wasn't even shed hunting. I was just mushroom hunting with some family members, and we had this really nice 10-point buck on camera throughout the year, and we called him Tips because his main beams came through and almost touched right at the end.
Oh, that's neat.
Had really long G4s, really nice deer. I'd say he was probably upper 140s, low 150s, and I was going through this little creek bed looking for mushrooms, going up to the next little, ridge, in the timber. And there in the creek bed, I saw this giant antler sitting there. Oh, I say giant antler, but for me,
It's nice,
that
man.
was a
150 deer.
really nice
Yeah.
antler, and I recognized it right away. It was his, and I thought that was the coolest thing, finding that, and
Hey,
being like, man, he was right here.
Mushroom hunting is something I could get into. I feel like maybe as much as I guess you could do them in tandem.
Yeah,
Do it in tandem. But I can find sheds, I feel like, decently. But I don't know how to find mushrooms, man. That's something, I guess I'm just novice enough. One, I've not really tried hard, but that's something I want to get into because you get a immediate reward from that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. When you come across like a patch where you see one and then you look up a little ways, a few yards, and you're like, oh my goodness, like there's a whole bunch of them through here. Then you start wondering, like, how many have I stepped on at this point? You turn around and look
my
behind
gosh,
you.
yeah. Literally the only one I found, this is no kidding, was I was sitting up on a turkey and like calling to the turkey, and I think I maybe dropped like my slate call or something off my knee, and I reached down to pick it up and there was a mushroom beside it. That's literally the only mushroom I've ever found was on accident.
That's awesome. How'd your hunting season go this year? For me, I was able to get my first public land buck this year. I've talked about it on a couple episodes in the archives, and just curious how things went for you in your area of the state, Noel.
Yeah, I actually got to talk to Jace Elliott, who is our DNR deer. I can't remember his exact title, but he is the deer man in Iowa, and he confirmed what we thought, is that we in Southwest Iowa are low on deer. I mean, that's just a kind way of putting it, I think. The deer numbers are down. I had, even though numbers are down, I had a couple of deer I was excited about that had some age on them. I trying to do the deal, on a couple of the farms that I have permission to hunt on, to letting some deer grow and get some age, and which is very fortunate that I have that opportunity, and had a couple that were going to be in that 5 year old range, which is ideal and for what we're trying to do with this farm. And man, it was started out like gangbusters. Like had him regular. This one deer in particular, Jaden was a nickname that we had given to him a couple of years ago for a wild reason. I'll have to tell you later, I suppose. But uh, anyway, had this deer regularly, and middle of the month of October, I ended up having to have a little surgery that I was not anticipating on my in my head. I had a cancerous mole
Oh,
come to
I'm
find
sorry to
out,
hear
and
that,
said
man.
we need to get this out pretty quick. And I ended up, you might could see it, man. I've got a little line there. I ended up getting having surgery, having like 30 stitches put in my head right in the middle of the month, and it knocked me out for a little bit. So I missed a little hunting time. Uh, Moved into November, and I was able to have Jaden at the bottom of my tree, like November 1, something like that. I'm about to kill him, about to be done. This is awesome. He's 9 point. That's like 162 or 3. He's big deer,
Oh,
big
wow.
deer. Yeah, a giant. And from the bottom of my tree, could not even get the bow drawn back. Like he had no way to kill this deer. Just the way it all worked out, and he moved out of my life. Had another encounter on the 8th of November, and I'm steadily hunting just this deer. There was another buck on the farm, but like this one's in my craw now,
Yep.
right? And I'm hunting really hard, just exclusively this one buck, leaving other farms alone, and get a phone call, man. I think the 18th or 19th, somewhere in that neighborhood of November, from my neighbor, and as actually a photo text and then a phone call, said, "Hey, is this Jaden?" Because she was very kindly has shared some info with me. She runs some trail cameras just for security reasons, and
Yep.
she knows I'm after this one buck. Great neighbor, love her to death. She's been an asset to me and a blessing to me. I'm like, that's him, but it was not a live picture. It was a dead picture. He was laying out in the middle of a CRP field next to a little creek, and some pheasant hunters had found him. And so I'd been hunting a dead deer. He was like he was dead too. Like it wasn't
Like it had been a
fresh at
while.
all. It had been a couple weeks. Probably the last time I had the visual on him, he was headed that way on the 8th, and I'm guessing he probably died like that night maybe.
What do you think happened?
Whether so it's hard to say. He was 100 yards off a road. Could have been poached. Could have been hit. My guess is EHD, just because we've had another case or two, like right around this exact same place. And I ask about that, if, even that late in the year, and they're like, oh yeah, absolutely. We've not had enough frost. We've not had enough moisture, all the little things that needed to line up to have an EHD outbreak. They confirmed that, very likely could have been it. That's my guess, because it
Yeah.
kills them quick. Uh, Attention had to shift immediately, though, Brent, and with the social structure changing on that farm, another good deer ended up moving in, and I was very dejected naturally after finding that big deer, and like I've wasted all this time, and I've wasted the prime rut. It's over. Like I'm getting scraps now at this point, but I actually got an arrow in a really nice buck on December. I think it was the 4th, like late, late. Chasing a doe of all things
Oh,
on
really?
December the 4th. Yeah, he was dogging her like it was November 4th. It was incredible. Um, but anyway, I stuck him, Brent, and anyway, long story short, I didn't kill him. It was a bad shot. It was me. It was 100% hunter error. I think I was so worked up at that point from the crummy, way that the year had gone through. I rushed everything, and got confirmation that very night, so I didn't have to fret long, if he was alive. But Praise the Lord, man, for gun season, right? We brought out the old equalizer during the second gun season, and I hunted that deer pretty exclusively. He was the only mature deer. He left the farm for a couple weeks, but he came back, and I ended up picking him up. Gun season is 9 days. Second season, I hunted 8 of them and killed him within the last 30 minutes of the last day of that second season. So
Wow.
I did not hunt a single time after that. I didn't try to go back with the bow for late season or, anything like that. I was very content um,
So this was the
with
same buck that
great
you shot with an
same.
arrow? Okay.
Yeah, same
Wow.
buck. He like I said, this I think the social structure had changed and he had moved in. He was a deer I knew about, but he wasn't really living on me. But after Jaden, the big deer had left, and he was a big, like just huge body, everything on this Jaden buck. After he had left, actually a couple deer came in really young, but this one was a mature deer. He's 4 or 5 year old deer. And yeah, I was able to get another crack at him, man. So some redemption. The gun is I've not shot a lot of deer with a gun, but it's awesome, and I'm not too proud by any means. It was fun. The cool thing about it was my brother and my mom actually had come up from Mississippi to do some Christmas activities, like with my kids and with us. We weren't going to be able to be in Mississippi for Christmas, and so it was kind of our celebration time together. And we went to church that morning and went out hunting that evening. And my brother, he's 12 years older than I am, he was with me. He's the one that essentially taught me hunting. My dad, did some too, but my brother, he's the one that I got like the bug from.
Yeah.
He's 16 taking his little 4-year-old brother out to a deer stand because he was babysitting that day or something like that. But I, just idolized the ground that he walked on. And he was with me for my first buck when I was 6 years old. And he went with me one time because he didn't like really bring clothes or anything to go. We just found stuff for him to go sit in. And we went and piled up in a terrace, a field terrace, and just hunkered down and got that deer killed. So he was with me just as an
Wow.
observer. But that was really, really special because, I mean, dude, we're from South Mississippi. He and I both have killed some good deer over the years in the Midwest. But when you're not around these big deer a lot, it can almost look unreal, I guess, that's an actual thing. It looks like horses compared to the 120-pound, bucks in Mississippi. So to get to share that with him, and he kind of saw the lifestyle I lead now, which
Mm-hmm.
is hunting is not a casual thing I hunt every day, especially if one gets in my craw, like I said. So that was neat and special. So it ended up being a really good year. It was a tough year, Brent, but it ended up thankfully with a nice ending.
I wanted to circle back to the one you wounded during archery.
Hmm.
I hope you didn't kick yourself, too much over that because obviously, as hunters, we want to make the most ethical like shot that we can, and man, it happens to everybody. I guarantee you, there is not one hunter that can say they haven't wounded an animal.
Yeah.
Just a couple years ago, here for me, I wounded an 8-pointer on public land pretty close to where I live, and I was so down in the dumps about it that I didn't go hunting the rest of the season. And I'm just curious how you overcame that and how you kind of dealt with those emotions because it's not easy, man.
It's not. I think the thing that frustrated me the most was I have, this is just being very transparent. I I have let some fundamentals slide when it comes to archery over the past few deer that I've shot. Um, and I've not had clean recoveries for like the past three bow bucks, maybe four. It's getting That's what was frustrating me the most. Like, dude, you
Well,
hunt hard, you figure this stuff out, and then you don't do the most fundamental things like taking your time or, settling your pen. And I think that was the most frustrating. So if I had a major takeaway from it, it was not that like I said, the deer was fine immediately. That helped a lot. I wasn't worried about him like suffering. He was chasing a doe that night, like on camera. So I wasn't worried. That helped a lot to overcome that,
So you had
just
that
for
like
what it's worth.
closure right then. Yeah.
Right away. Like I shot him on a Wednesday evening and I left him to go to church and to teach. And so during church, like that evening, I got a cell cam notification from a place what like quarter of a mile away from where I shot him that he was alive and he was chasing a doe. So like that immediate confirmation was great. I mean, it stunk, but it was great to know he's alive enough to be chasing a doe and I can still hunt him.
Yeah.
Um, the frustration was more like, dude, you've got to make some changes. And so that's like moving forward for 2025. That's something I am hyper committed to. Because I mean, if you keep making the same mistakes over and over and over and over, at some point in time, you got to take a long look in the mirror and say, okay, it's not just the deer flinching or doing this or that. It's some of it's you, old boy. And last year was an unfortunate thing with a big deer that I had to leave overnight, and of course, he's got eaten on and things like that. That was just an unfortunate
Hey,
series of events.
in your defense though of that, because I watched that video,
Yeah.
and I thought you smoked him, man. Like the
Same.
shot, like seeing in live, fast paced video and not slow mo or anything. I thought you got it right there in the 12 ring, and I was like, man, he's down for the count. He won't go far, and
Yeah.
like I don't know how to even explain that because it was just right tucked up right behind the shoulder. It looked like perfect placement.
Well, it's funny you say that. That's, I mean, again, a learning thing, right? Uh, I work with Buck Ventures, and so that night on that deer in particular, Leroy, the redneck reindeer, right?
Yeah.
That's the one we call it, the 2023.
Kind of have a non-typical, funky looking rack to him.
Oh,
Yeah.
he was wild, man. It was such a cool deer. But I sent the video, which that's a great and fortunate thing about videoing. Everything is we get to send this stuff around and get out ideas, and like your mind can play tricks on you. Because I think even in that video, I said, oh, he's smoked or he's toasted or something like that. And I thought he was. But Jeff pointed out to me very quickly, because he's like, he's wanting to help. He's not trying to pick on or anything. He's like, so his forward leg was all the way back because he was walking. He was so close, I didn't want to stop him. And so, yeah, I tucked it right where you would aim on a target, right behind the front shoulder, but his leg was all the way back in stride. And so by doing that, and he was quartered just enough that instead of it being like double lung, it was all liver because of that leg being back. So he's like, ideally you'd have waited till he took one more step and exposed all of that with his leg forward instead of backward, and then you tuck it and it's lights out. So learning experiences, trying to grow from it, man. Deer hunting is such a cool thing, Brent, because as soon as I think as soon as you feel like you have it figured out, it'll humble you really quickly. And if you're pursuing it at the level that we're trying to pursue it, as more than just meat hunting or things like that. So it's good, and I've enjoyed it. It's kicked my teeth in some, but I had a much better attitude this year. I feel like, even in spite of some hardships, just the cancerous mole thing, like that. Not that it was life threatening or necessarily anything like that, but it just, like, stuff can be taken away quickly, and so rather than loathe things or experiences, try to live in them, and that was a little more of an attitude I had this year.
Man, I didn't even know that you went through that this year. I mean, how are things going for you now? You doing all right?
Yeah, let me be careful with that, because it's not like a huge diagnosis or anything. People have this all the time. It's just I'm a moley human being. I have them all over the place, and go to the dermatologist, and I've never had one be checked that came back even irregular, much less with like the I forget the actual words. Some of your viewers, I'm sure, could help us there, but it was enough that they're like, yeah, we don't need to let this one go. You need to go ahead. And I've had them like biopsied and stuff before, but never actually like completely cut out.
Okay.
And the fact that it wasn't even like I drove myself home. It wasn't a huge deal, but just the fact of where it was, it like even I still have a little lump, but it swole my eye and my face up, and like just the surgery did, and so I couldn't. I was kind of walking around with an eye squinted for a couple of days, and uh, anyway, it
That
was
would make
everything's fine.
looking through your peep sight kind of challenging, right?
Yeah, on the right eye,
Yeah,
but everything came back fine. The margins were clear, they said,
good.
and so that was great. So two things, I guess, this year, the eye thing in October, and then I took my son and I got the privilege to go to South America. Uh, Day or two after Christmas, we went and did some mission work in Chile, in the country of Chile. And so I knew most of late season was out. So like I said, when I got the deer killed that last day of gun season, it was quite a relief because at least I knew, like, I was fearful that that would be my last day to hunt anyway.
Hmm.
But I ended up coming back from Chile with 4 or 5 days to hunt and had a little renewed vigor. I still had a landowner tag, and I'd love to own ground for 2 years and have never gotten a deer off of it. So I thought, well, that's where I'll go and spend my time. But I ended up coming back with E. coli
Oh
from
my
Chile
goodness,
and was sick for like 7 or 8 days.
that's
So
nothing
that
to
shut.
mess around with.
No, let me tell you, I asked the Lord to help me lose some weight to start the new year, and boy, did he! We got busy. So it shut deer season down. I wasn't like bedridden or anything, but I was trying to stay pretty close to home, if you know what I mean.
Oh my gosh, man, you had what a story for for your hunting season. Oh my gosh.
Listen, if it could happen, it'll happen. So we had a huge deer in Kansas. We hunted early
Yeah.
and hard. Our friend Lance and I both had tags, and he and I were like um, alternating who was hunting. And I think I got closest. I mean, we were together every time, but I was hunter, and I think we got him to 70 yards, something like that. And just daylight ran out. He never came in to range, and so spent a lot of time in Kansas in October. Some even in back into the end part of November. So, but it was a fun year. Deer sightings weren't awesome here in Iowa. Kansas was a little stronger for me,
Yep.
but I'm going to probably hunt Kansas again this year because after taking the buck off the Iowa farm after losing Jaden, I had another deer that was, probably would have shot him. He was borderline, but probably would have shot him. He ended up getting taken by the neighbor. So at this point, I can't identify. Definitely not a mature deer for this year, but I don't even know unless something moves in over the summer that I will have a mature deer on my farm for next year. So probably we'll spend some more time in Kansas, is my guess.
You just never know, though, man. Like
No, that's right.
one of these
That's
younger
right.
bucks could take a huge bump, right, going into the next year, or something moves in. Man, I think
That farm is primed to hold about one mature deer.
Yeah.
One, I say 1.5 because like one can for sure live on it and then have another regular. And they not run into each other too much, but not a whole lot more than that. My hope is this late season, I'm trying to leave some food in there. This late season, spring, that a mature deer moves in and realizes that this vacant and will take up residence this summer. So yeah, I mean, not all hope is lost, but I know a couple of big deer that made it last year in Kansas. So I think that's
good.
why a lot of attention will be spent down there if I draw a tag, Lord willing.
Well, hopefully also like you guys see an increase or a bump in the population numbers there too. Cause man, I'm glad you hit on it at the beginning. Cause I was just, for my farm broadcasting work with Brownfield, I was just at the Iowa Pork Congress here this past week in Des Moines, kind of the convention for Iowa pork producers. And, a hog farmer that I know very well, and I've been to his farm for some updates in the Essex area right there, kind of in Page County. And I know that his family likes to go out during shotgun season. I think that's about the only deer hunting that they do. And I saw him at the Iowa Pork Congress here, and I was like, hey, how's it going? Did you guys have good luck this year with shotgun season? And he's like, we didn't even go because I don't know if we've seen a deer on our farm this year. So we just didn't
That
go.
was the attitude of a lot of guys. I ran into some during the first gun. group that I've been running into for years, and they were like midday, and they're like, "Yeah, we're not going back out." After, so we just weren't seeing much. It really got it in pockets. I appreciate the fact that there were some action steps taken to try to mitigate that loss here in southwestern Iowa. We lost all of our doe tags for like 6 or so counties, our antlerless tags.
That's tough.
It is, especially for folks who really like the meat. I mean, you can still get antler tags, and so you could still, get meat and things like that. Uh, but our numbers are down in this part of the country. But like I said, they're trying to mitigate that. The best way to mitigate is by limiting doe harvest.
Mm-hmm.
They said that's the chief way. And so I actually, like, numbers wise, in pockets it was really low, but there are some pockets that are, you can see rebounding. And so a lot of young deer, which is, I mean, young deer become old deer if they get a chance to grow. So that's, the future is not dismal.
Yeah.
But talking to Jake Elliott the other day, Jace Elliott, excuse me, he was very optimistic for other parts of the state. It's like they're doing great. So the numbers overall across the state are going to look about the same, but they're a little higher in some areas. They're super low in some areas. Just unfortunately, we live in one of the lower areas, and maybe this is the year we rebound, man.
And I'm in Marion County, and it's funny because there was a post, I don't know what Facebook page it was, if it was like Iowa Sportsman's Club or something like that, but they kind of posted some EHD numbers, and Marion County was kind of high. And I saw a lot of folks from my county posting that, they weren't seeing any deer this year. Numbers were down. And I felt bad because, Noel, personally, I was quite opposite. Like,
had a great,
I saw, like, last year, and I think I talked about it in the archives here. Last year, I had one deer in bow range the entire season that I went out. It was really, really just a down year for me last year. I don't even think I drew my bow back one time. And this year, I saw more deer than any other season of my hunting life, and more shooter bucks than any year of my life. I don't know if I was just in the right places at the right time, but like, the encounters were awesome this year, and it was a year to remember for me, just on not only that I got a deer on public land, but just the mature bucks that I had encounters with. That was just so cool.
What a blessing. It's definitely affected pockets, I think, is a great way to describe.
Yeah.
Everything wasn't super widespread. The numbers too are going to look funny because this is the first year that they've had a formal, like, reporting system. And so it might look astronomically high, but it's the first year that there's been some reporting. And I was listening to a podcast, Brent, and someone, maybe it was Josh Sparks, I think that's who said it, ask, is EHD more prevalent now than it's been? Which, it is in a lot of ways. He said, or wonder if social media has not just made people aware of it more, or media made it aware of it more. I feel like it's higher, no doubt. Like, I've lived here for 9 years now, and I can only remember 2 times where I've walked shed hunting and found multiple deceased deer, like in a creek bed. But I don't know that hasn't always happened, So
that's true.
Anyway, we'll find out, though. Thankfully, there is a recording process going on right now, and they'll have some hard data. And I'm guessing in 5 years we'll have great things to look back on and see trends and all. And so, but hey, how fortunate for you, right? I was the same way. Like, the pocket that I was in, thankfully, it got hit 2 years ago. So while things aren't the best, they weren't awful either. But then I have some friends that said that this is the worst year that they've ever had, much similar. So I guess it depends on where you were.
Yeah. Well, hey, man, thanks so much for coming on the show. It's always just a pleasure to talk to you and hear how your stories go. And I feel like the last 2 or 3 years now, it's always about this time, end of January, that I have you on. It just works out that way. So it's a nice kind of reflection and lessons learned type of deal. And it's just always good to talk to you, man.
Well, it's an honor for me, Brent, and I love I love listening to your show. So I ask very selfishly that you keep it up.
Hey, before we break here, I know you had a mini series this fall. And those episodes are still out there. How can our listeners find them?
Yeah, I guess you could we go into great detail on a little mini series through the First Gen Hunter podcast. Your friend Kent Boucher runs that
The most
podcast.
frequent guest on the Outdoor Adventure Show here is Kent.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Yeah. So Kent has asked, he said, "Hey, you feel like doing a guest spot?" And so our friend Lance Cornelius and I co-hosted together a mini series called the Rut Revival. And we dropped it essentially every week in November, and then one like much, much later, kind of a recap. So that's on the First Gen Hunter podcast. And then you can scroll through and find Rut Revival. But like on Instagram, yeah, if anyone's interested in following, I don't know why they would be, but at Noel Gandy. And I have a couple pages on Facebook too, Noel Gandy and Noel Gandy Public Figure. All my stuff goes out there, so easy to find. If you need a church to go to, Christ Point Baptist Church, Facebook.
Hey, I'm going to Midwest goodbye you here. So before we break,
Right.
Is there one thing that you're going to focus on or look to change or try something new next year? And to let you kind of think about it real fast. For me, man, I've been shooting this dang recurve bow that's in my office here, and I'm so addicted to shooting it right now, and I want to go hunting with it. And I don't know what'll happen, but I want to take this recurve on a hunt this year. That's kind of my thing.
You and Caleb Drake, man, that's he's into that recurve business too. Listen, I can't kill one good enough with a compound right now, Brent. When I
Me
when I
too,
reach
so I don't
your,
know what I'm talking
when I
about.
reach your status of off the ground public land prowess,
Oh,
maybe.
stop it.
My goal this year is to actually kill a deer with the bow and not just get one up. That's that's my main goal. But to that, I like jokingly say that, but I really throughout my practice sessions this summer, I'm going to try to like hyper focus on not just shooting and hitting a bullseye, but developing a routine.
Okay.
Or I've heard some say, have a mantra or a chant, not a chant. That sounds strange, but having something where a process, maybe that's, we'll go the Alabama Crimson Tide route. We'll go through a process to where I feel like I can shoot the eyes out of a summer bale, right? Of a summer target. But I'm having some sort of panic between filming and like when you hunt target deer, like specific deer, for me anyway, I can't speak for everyone. It's something about like, oh shoot, here's my chance at so and so. So I've quit naming deer. That's like if it's a Big Ten for a year or two anyway, we're gonna have to call it the Big Ten. Because that does something to me mentally. My family and I have always enjoyed giving nicknames to deer, but like that's switching something in me mentally when I have XYZ deer in front of me.
Like puts them
And
on
so,
a pedestal type.
It does.
Yeah.
I'm still probably will hunt specific deer, but it's just going to be a deer at that point and not a family member. So like a process and then tweaking some things as far as how I'm going through my season. That's kind of it. And like I said, maybe that sounds strange to some, but that's what I'm going to do anyway.
No, I think that's cool. For me, I struggled with target panic for the longest time. It was so bad at one point that I stopped shooting my bow for several years. Just a confidence thing. I was almost embarrassed to, like, if family members would invite me to come to a 3D shoot, I wouldn't go because I knew I couldn't hit the target because my pin would lock below what I was shooting at. And for the life of me, I couldn't pull the pin any higher.
Couldn't raise it up a quarter an inch.
Nope,
Yep, I've been there.
And ever since I switched to a thumb button release, I've really worked through a lot of that. So I don't know what you shoot equipment-wise, but like watching some videos on YouTube on thumb button and how like the back tension works, which I didn't even know was a thing. Like that's
I punched
really
myself in the
lot.
face the only time I've tried to use it, so I'm kind of out on that.
Well, not a actual hinge. I actually have the button on there. There's some of them, yeah, like there's no button. Like you have to have it positioned a certain way,
Just
and
right.
then when you roll it over, that's when it fires. Yeah,
I'm glad you overcame that. But yeah, mine's not so much target panic though.
Okay,
I guess
that's good.
as just rushing.
Yeah, okay, I gotcha.
And getting too caught up in the moment of like, oh shoot, this is happening. This is like in my mind, it's a circus. And so probably we'll do some research on calming a mind in intense moments, and which that can only help in life, right? I
Yeah.
mean, not just in hunting. So got some work to do, and gonna enjoy it though. Always look. You never know what a season's gonna bring. We always have high hopes and aspirations, but it started on January the 11th. 2025 deer season did. So I look forward to the process this year.
I'm excited for you, man. If we'll have to get together sometime and get in person and hang out or go on a hunt. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Well, I'm going to have a reason to be in your neck of the woods more here this year. I feel like of coming and helping out, hopefully with that First Gen Hunter podcast, and they're close to you there, so maybe we can get together.
That'd be awesome, man. Hey, thanks for coming on our show here today.
Yeah, Brent. Thank you, man.
That's Noel Gandy, a friend of mine from Southern Iowa. Thanks a lot, as always, for tuning into the Outdoor Adventures podcast. You can watch our video episodes like this one in our archives on our Brownfield Ag News YouTube channel, or the audio portion you can find wherever you get your podcasts as well. I'm Brent Barnett here on Brownfield. Thanks for watching us this week on Outdoor Adventures.